All right, welcome to today's session. What's next? An overview of depth, complexity, and problem-based learning. In education today, certain buzzwords gain popularity. Words like grit and perseverance hold our attention. Some of these words, like differentiation and cooperative learning, become educational pedagogy. They are constant in our verbiage as we try to improve student achievement. Research has also shown that differentiation and cooperative learning is scientifically sound instructional methods. But in today's world, and especially with our gifted learners, differentiation and cooperative learning only scratch the surface of meeting their needs. Hello, I'm Lisa Aguilar, Master's of Arts and Gifted Education graduate candidate at Grand Canyon University, and special education teacher at Gaston High School. Before we start talking about how to teach gifted students, we must agree on a vision for gifted education. There are a lot of myths about gifted education. Maybe you've heard some. Maybe you hold some of these ideas yourself. One of the greatest myths is the idea that gifted students are fine on their own. They don't need help. What often happens is that we focus on the average or the struggling student, leaving the gifted student as a peer tutor or an example for others. In reality, we leave this gifted student neglected because they either already know or quickly acquire what we are teaching. There's a saying in gifted education: every child has the right to learn something new every day. This is just as true for the gifted student as it is for the average student or the struggling student. So today we're going to discuss using strategies to help the gifted students in your class engage in deeper and more complex learning. And guess what? These strategies can be used for all of your students. But before I get started, I want to go over our learning objectives for today. Some of you may be aware that the National Association for Gifted Children in 2010 published a set of standards to support gifted learners. These standards address 6 areas for gifted programming: learning and development, assessment, curriculum and instruction, learning environments, programming, and professional development. Today's session focuses on a curriculum and instruction standard which states, students with gifts and talents become independent learners, independent investigators. I will introduce 2 strategies that you can use to help your students meet this standard. This is an overview. I will be going over the main components of these strategies and providing you with additional resources. I also want to extend an offer. If you are interested in learning more about these strategies or other ways to support the gifted learners in your class, I'm available for ongoing training or individual consultation. So I think we can all agree that one of the best and most effective learning strategies is to connect new learning to what we already know and do well. So in preparing for this presentation, I asked myself, what is it that teachers in our district do well? And of those things, which are already meeting the needs of our gifted learners? And here's what I found. Teachers in our district are aware that children learn differently. They use this knowledge to design lessons and engage all learning styles: kinetic, auditory, and visual. In one class I observed, the teacher did more than just incorporate doing or hands-on activities. She also added movement to the lessons. Brain breaks were used to get the students moving, which increases oxygen flow and improves focus. A brain break can be as simple as having students stand and stretch, but there are many ideas that incorporate movement with content. The teacher I observed, for example, had the students power punch their supporting evidence when discussing their essay writing. While the students were doing their own writing, I observed them still punching to recall those ideas. In another observation, she had the students stand with their groups while discussing their biome projects. If you want more ideas on brain breaks, a quick Google search will come up with millions of hits, but I'm going to share with you a few of my favorites. First one, secondary Spanish space. Reason why I like this particular one, it has a few ideas, 5-minute brain breaks, so they don't take very long. And what I do like is that it incorporates language into them. I think a lot of times our secondary foreign language or world language teachers don't have a lot of strategies that are available to the rest of our content area staff, and so they kind of have to tailor a lot of things because the kids are learning something very, very brand new, often for the first time. So I like this one. It gives some ideas. They're all kind of like language based. Gives a little bit of ideas about why you probably should be doing brain breaks. Quick, easy to explain, fun, and then these incorporate language. So if you see, there's always like these prompts here, like what do you like to do? And then they will, brainstorm these ideas, and then they move around and either group together or answer their choices, make their answer choices and things like that. So there's several of them here. I want to show you. I think she had 10 or so. So that's one website that might be able to give you guys some ideas on how to incorporate brain breaks. Another one is this one. It's Minds in Bloom. The thing about Minds in Bloom that I liked is that they're 3-minute brain breaks. And when you're on a 15-minute schedule like we are at our school, 5-minute might be a long time, to move from the content to a brain break, but a 3-minute might be way more doable. The other thing about this is it actually may appeal to younger students, maybe more than older students, but I'm sure, sorry, there's a pop-up. I'm sure that you can find a way to incorporate that. Some have just basic movements. Some have things that you can kind of connect to it. 20 different ideas for that at that website. The next one is at UC Davis. The thing about this one is kind of cool. Is that it's a PDF file. And so it's much more intensive. I think there's 30 brain breaks on this particular thing set for middle school. So that means they can kind of go up and maybe even go down a little bit, maybe more user for more levels at this for this one. Gives you ideas on why kids need to move, how to create a active classroom, and then it even tells you, list the ideas by subject. So some of these up here can go with any subject, and then language, arts, science, social studies, math. When you keep going, then it actually gives you the instructions, how long it's going to take. Do you need any supplies? What do you do? What's the instructions and that kind of thing. Whole PDF file full of stuff. So some of them don't even have any equipment, so that's kind of nice too. Again, the last one goes to Edutopia, and the reason why I like this one is because it gives you brain break ideas for kids who need to add energy or get that break, but it also has focused attention practices. So if you have a kid who they need a brain break, but you're kind of worried that the brain break actually might kind of backfire on you and they're going to get too increase their movement and decrease their focus. The first set here is, like I said, there's regular brain breaks, but down here at the bottom it has focused attention practices. So here it even has like breathing attentions, like this. Have students place one hand close to their nose, not touching, and one on their belly, and have them breathe and feel in and just focus on the breath coming in and going out and the movement of their belly as they breathe in and out, and get them to focus a little bit more. So there's several ideas that way, and that may actually benefit a lot of our students, because a lot of our students can get restless, but sometimes I know we're afraid that they're going to get even more active if we give them a break. So another practice I noticed during my observations is that teachers in this district provide opportunities to work alone and work together. Teachers also understand the importance of student learning, that students should learn from and with other students. Teachers also let students choose sometimes, working either alone or together when it's appropriate. And then there are lots of benefits to group work, including building the skills needed for the workplace. You're probably aware of all of these benefits, but I do have a link that summarizes the reasons pretty well. Get that link open for us. Okay, so this one, benefits of group work, and then it tells you reasons why here with some data and some good information. So if anybody's asking you, like we have these studies, and it kind of compiles all that into one. One is increased individual achievement. So students working together can actually help students when they have to be assessed alone on their achievement tests. And the other one is enhances communication and other professional development skills. So in reality, what we are trying to do is getting our students ready for the world that they're going to encounter when they graduate from high school. And one of the ways to do that is going to be to have them work with others. We all have to do that. So we need to make sure that they know how. These two practices that teachers are already using provide a foundation for the two strategies I'm going to introduce to you now. Also, all of these resources are going to be available to you as a link after the survey. So when you take the survey, and I'll probably say this a couple times, but when you take the survey at the end, you'll answer some questions on one page, you go to another page, and I'll show you that. And there's going to be these links, and they will open up new browsers so that you can complete the survey, and then you can have access to the documents. The documents are all Google Drive documents, or in my Google Drive, so you'll have shared access to those. Some of them you can modify, and some of them you cannot. It'll just be for view only. There's one, and I'll show you that when we get there, that you can copy and then modify your copy, but my copy stays as a template. So our strategies. The two strategies I'm going to introduce to you are Dr. Kaplan's depth and complexity model and a problem-based learning. We already determined that gifted students need to become independent investigators. So these two strategies can help gifted students, and really all students, develop a deeper understanding of the content that will lead to curiosity and inquiry. These are also two of the strategies that focus on higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy and Webb's depth of knowledge. So whichever you or your school prefers you to work with, these strategies will fit. Last, and probably the best, they can be used with all your students. So you're not designing and planning completely different lessons for each student. You're letting the students develop the skills to become independent learners through these strategies at the level that they are at. So Dr. Kaplan's depth and complexity. Dr. Sandra Kaplan is from the University of Southern California, and she developed these critical thinking tools. These tools are comprised of visual prompts, and you can see them cycling through there on the screen. These visual prompts are designed to help students go beyond the surface level of understanding to a concept and enhance their ability to think critically. The visual prompts, called icons, function similar to the icons on your smartphone or your computer. So when you look at your phone screen, you might see a blue square with a white F, and you recognize that as, hope you said Facebook. A red circle with a white P in the middle of it is, come on, teachers, it is Pinterest. We should know that one for sure. And then when you see the blue E, you know that it will lead you to the internet through either the Internet Explorer or what's now known as Microsoft Edge. You know each app or tool on your phone and computer based on the icon on your screen. So these 11 prompts function the same way. As a student begins to think about the content, the icons can prompt them to either a more deeper or more complex understanding. Using several in combination can lead to advanced critical thinking about the concepts. And isn't that what we want? We want critical thinkers, right? But like your phone, the students need to be introduced to the icon, what it means, and what it does. So basically, they need time to play with the icons while they learn how to use them. So a couple quick points before we move to the icons themselves. These icons can be used every day in any content, topic, or concept with any of them, which means that they're just as useful in a math class as they are in an English language arts class. They are ideal for science and social studies, but technology, arts, even PE can use these icons to move the learning experience to a deeper and more complex level. These icons also can be used with all students. They're originally developed for gifted students, but they can be used with all students. Of course, a kindergartner will look different than the high school senior. A special education student will look different than their gifted classmate. But the point is, these icon prompts prompt students to move from a surface level to a deeper and more complex understanding, no matter what their level is. Because of these two reasons, using Dr. Kaplan's icons is an obvious instructional strategy choice, especially for gifted learners who need more challenging learning opportunities. So, let's take a look at the icons. The first 8 icons deal with the thinking process that adds depth to the current content by moving ideas from concrete to abstract and making connections. These icons also increase student questioning and curiosity. The last 3 icons are the complexity icons. They extend the thinking process to move the ideas from parts to wholes and continue building connections through disciplines and perspectives to create solutions. This chart is included in your resource materials, which you'll have access to after the survey. So now I'd like to briefly walk you through the icons so that you can get a feel for what each does and how they increase your students' critical thinking. So here's a little activity for you. I'm not sure if you have participated in a collaborative digital note-taking before. So here's how it works. In the video, I have a link titled Popcorn Activity. Below the video, I'm going to have a link titled Popcorn Activity. This activity is from Ian Bird, and it can be found at his blog at Birdseed, birdseed.com. The link will be listed in your resource materials, so when you click on the link, you'll find the editable booklet, and it's really a Google slideshow that I turn sideways and makes it look like a book, gives me more room to use the white space for note-taking. As you think of ideas. I would like you to pause this presentation or write down your responses so you can see what other, and if you go through the Google thing, it's a shared document, so you'll be able to see what others are writing or have written. Their ideas may also generate new ideas, so add them as well. Questions are okay too. They will give you a point for further research and inquiry. So if you aren't able to access a document, you can grab a piece of paper and a pencil and play along anyway. Ready? So pause the video if you need to get your materials, and I'll be here when you press play. Okay, are you ready? All right, so I'm gonna open it up through here. It's actually, if you get to the PowerPoint, you should be able to access it through here when you get to those things if you want to go back to it that way after the survey. But here's what it should come up with, right? It's not supported in my browser. What browser am I in? Okay, I will go through it anyway, and I will talk you through everything. Okay, so let's meet the icons. When you open the slideshow, let me see. When you open the slideshow, you're going to notice that you are on the title page. If you are in Google Slides, which I don't know why I'm not in Google Slides, but anyway, you know what? I will open up my Google Slides so you can follow along with me. And if that happens to you, just get a pen and paper or pause. It should be letting me in because of this, but find it here. Should be at the top of my slides because I just played with it. Well, possibly, unless my internet is slow. Here we go. Okay, so these are actually some of the things you're going to have access to today. But this one is the one that should be coming up. Hopefully it will be coming up for your video. And there's always a way around it, right? And it should look like this. You should have the pages over here. This is the format I use with my students in my class when I use the Google Classroom. So you can kind of see how that's working. But here's the pages coming up. So you can see here's all the icons here, and then there's a page for each icon. Now, another thing you need to know is there's notes in the slides. So you can navigate through this way, but when you go to the next slide, it's actually going to give you prompts down here that might help you remember what the icon is and give you some ideas on what you would like to, what you should be writing in there, or what the, what the prompt is wanting you to do. All right, just wanted to make it bigger, but just so you can kind of see what I'm writing. So here's the first page, language of the discipline. It has lips, right? We're going to go through each one. When you do this with your students, though, we're going to go in order, but you actually might skip around and you might not even use all of them. So we're just going them in order so I can show you kind of what each of them means, but you may not actually use it in the same way. I also developed this in my classroom because I've moved from a interactive student notebook to a Google Classroom, and it kind of made sense because I wanted notebook pages for my students to be able to continue using the icons, but in a digital format. So let me see. So just made sense for my class. This is just one of many tools. Like some of the websites I'll give you will have all kinds of templates and other kind of things that you can use for it, other ways to introduce it, other graphic organizers and things to use it. So you'll have access to all that stuff once you finish the training and the survey. So when you go down the second page, again, if you weren't able to open it or whatever, pause it, get a piece of paper so you can kind of play along, and you'll be fine. You'll have access to this later. But the first icon is a pair of lips, and it represents the languages of the discipline. So what this prompt does is it gives us a chance to think of all the vocabulary terms that are specific to the content or the discipline area. This can be jargons, it could be acronyms, it could be special phrases, terms, slangs, even abbreviations. In ELA classes, it might be things like figures of speech. Math classes and other classes too. I mean, any class, it can include symbols and signs. So really, almost anything that has to deal with just the vocabulary that's used when you're talking about that content or within that discipline. A quick note. The icon information, again, I think is on the reference page, so you should have that. There's some explanations there that can be found at envisiongifted.com. It's going to be on the resource page, but if you kind of forget, how is that working, that website, she puts all kinds of great information on there, and it's easy to understand what she has. So here's your first question, all right? We're going to be talking about popcorn. We're going to answer all these questions having to do with popcorn. I think I told you it was on Ian's page. So the first question is, and I'm going to put here, and you can come up with ideas. This one, or I'm going to do weird things. I've done that before. So you could put ideas of what you think this is, but what vocabulary, is it like a prompt that you can do with your students, terms are specific to popcorn? I'm using popcorn because it's something we all know and it's relatively easy, but you're going to start seeing how complex popcorn can become. So when you get onto your page, because this is a shared document, so you will have access to add ideas on here, you could put stuff. But of course, there's things like kernel and butter and heat that we know, but what other things can you come up with? You just keep adding them onto this list. In your class, when you're doing with your content, you might, or if you want to introduce it with popcorn, you might have them research for more concepts. Maybe, the kernel is like a seed, so there's parts to that. And what are all those parts called? Before we move on, I want you to think about the language in your discipline or content area. What words would you put on here? And what words do you think your students are going to add? While you're adding to this list, you can pause the presentation. All right, so the next icon is a flower and it represents details. The flower is used because the petals are like parts, and when you put them together, they make the whole. So when you click on that slide, it's the third one down, but it's the second one with things you can write on it. Or you can sketch it. So if you're doing this on paper, sketch the lips, sketch the flower. It'll give you that visual prompt you need to start understanding these. The sketching is really good. Details. So details are the parts, factors, and attributes, variables, and distinguishing traits. So back to popcorn. Here's my first question. What are the defining features or characteristics? I'm not going to spell things right. Of popcorn. And then maybe another question here is, what evidence or examples do you have? So you see that there might be an overlap sometimes with language of the discipline, right? Because if I'm going to describe the features and characteristics of popcorn and I go down to the seed, I might start naming those parts too of the kernel. And so there might be some overlap, and that is okay. There can be overlap. That is how the deeper connections are being made, is when these things start overlapping into the other icons. So what are the details? What makes a popcorn kernel different than maybe a sweet corn kernel? What's different about the plants, the popcorn plant and the sweet corn plant? Did you notice that when it's popped, there are different shapes? What are they called, and why does that happen? So now I want you to think about real quick in your content area, unit, or even topics that you talk about, your themes. What are deep details that your students can explore? So pause the presentation if you need more time. All right, so we're back and we're on the next page. The next page is on the fourth slide, and it's patterns, and it's this pattern of five dots, kind of like a domino, and or a dice, and it's connected by lines. So it kind of even looks like patterns. So here what you're looking for is predictability and repetition. So here's a couple questions about popcorn and patterns. What about popcorn reoccurs? Is there a sequence or order of, sorry, I'll fix that, events that deal with popcorn? Can you make predictions based on past events with popcorn? Let me fix my there right here. All right. So as you think of the other patterns with popcorn, think of how you could use that pattern with other things. So with popcorn, we always see it in places like movie theaters and stuff. So that's a pattern. Popcorn and movies go together. How can you use patterns in your content area? Pause the presentation if you need more time. All right, trends is represented by this graph. And trends is also probably the trickiest one. It can be easily confused with patterns. So you need to think about this idea. Here's the pattern where the lines are moving straight. And the trend is whatever it is that caused this to change directions. So trends represent the general direction of change. Change is the key word here. So some things to think about with trends are influence, force, direction, course of action, compare, contrast, even forecast. So here's a couple questions. What trends do you notice about the price of popcorn at the movies? What does that tell us about the economy? So you can add other thoughts or questions you have about popcorn trends. There's others. I mean, like trends in flavors of popcorn, trends in using popcorn. Like what even made popcorn be at the movies in the first place? How did that get started? What trends can your students find in your content area? Pause the presentation if you need more time. Okay, so after trends comes rules. Rules is represented by this hierarchy chart. And this icon deals with structure, order, reasons, organization, explanation, and classifications. Starting a sentence with because is a clue that you're going to be talking about a rule. So back to popcorn. What structure underlies what about what guidelines or regulations affect popcorn? Actually, here maybe the popcorn industry give us a clue. Let me think else over here. Oh, what hierarchy? Oh. So here's a few questions. What hierarchy or ordering principle guides popcorn or the popcorn industry, the use of popcorn? And are there scientific rules in popping popcorn? Think about the structure of popcorn. Remember that overlapping builds stronger connections. So if you get to structure and then you start going back to vocabulary and details, that's okay. Um, the rules icon could be easily used in math when applying formulas to equations. In English language arts, when writing, the writing has to follow the structure of an essay, and in science with classifying matter. But that's not all. Think of other ways this icon is addressed in your content area. Pause the video and take a moment if you need to. Okay, so now we're at ethics. And ethics is one of my favorites. It's represented by the black and white diamond shape. Ethics focuses on values, morals, pros and cons, bias, discrimination, prejudice, differing opinion, points of view, right and wrong, and wisdom. So here's an interesting discussion. What moral principles are involved with popcorn? What controversies exist with popcorn? What arguments could emerge from a study of popcorn? Sorry, probably annoying some of you out there. I apologize. Are there ethical issues with popcorn? So think about some of those ideas. What are the ethical and moral issues in your content? Pause if you need more time. All right, big ideas is represented with the pillars, and the pillars signify the supporting evidence, and a roof, and the roof is the main idea. So this can include drawing conclusions based on evidence, making generalizations, summarizing theory, principle, and main idea. Are there any big ideas that you can come to about popcorn? Let me give you some questions to ponder. Okay, so is there any theory or general statements that we can apply to popcorn? Does popcorn relate to any ideas about change, systems? Is there an idea, a main idea that we're coming to, and this might not be just of popcorn, but just of all the icons together? Are they giving us some sort of main overarching theme or main idea about popcorn in general? Are there big ideas that you need with your students to understand or connect in your content? One last thing about big ideas. I think I said at the beginning that we're going through them in order. Big ideas is one I usually like to do at the end, and it just because they can connect all the vocabulary and the details and the questions and the ethics, and they can come up with a really solid main idea about the story or the topic or the subject as a whole. So even though we're doing out of order here, because we're following just kind of like the order on basically on the work on the chart, so that you can see how they originate and that they're together as far as depth icons and complexity icons. Big ideas is one I actually like to do at the end. So take a moment if you need to, and we'll go on to the next one. The last of the depth icons is unanswered questions. It's super easy to remember because it's 3 question marks. Unanswered questions are a good thing. They help us explore missing parts, incomplete ideas, discrepancy, unresolved issues, and ambiguity. They are questions that are not answered quickly and may be unanswerable, but they generate deep thinking and discussions. So here's a few questions. These kind of sound silly, right? What information about popcorn is unclear, missing, or unavailable? What evidence about popcorn is still needed? And what about popcorn has not been proven yet? So it seems kind of silly because popcorn seems so simple. But if you have been using these icons and the students have been actually researching these questions, you will probably come up with some questions, new questions that you may have to either research more or maybe there is just no definitive answer yet. So how can this prompt be used in your content? Remember, these aren't questions that have a simple answer. You can't Google them right away and find an answer. They are questions that are going to take extensive research and critical thinking, and they may never have a definitive answer. You may never come to for sure that is the answer. The next one. So we finished the 8 depth icons. Now we're going to move on to the 3 complexity icons. So this one changes over time. On the worksheet, it's going to be represented with a clock. But on a lot of other documents, it's either represented with these arrows, moving in a circle, kind of like something moving over a cycle, or sometimes it'll even say past and then present and future. And just so you know, it's all the same icon. It's just the one on our little worksheet thing, or the little handout thing has more of a clock than this one. So should be okay, not a problem. So this icon focuses on how the past, present, future connect to whatever the concept is. It might be connecting points in time. Maybe you're examining a time period. Maybe you're comparing and contrasting something across time. So here's our popcorn questions. How has popcorn been a part of the past, present, and future? Do you know where it started and how it kind of became a mainstream snack? That might be interesting. And where's popcorn head in the future? Do you think we'll be eating it in 50 years, 100 years? You'll be replaced by some other snack. Here's another one. What hasn't changed about popcorn? What has stayed the same even though time has passed? It has remained the same. So think about changes over time in your content. And how can you apply this particular icon? Pause if you need some time. All right, across disciplines is represented by the 3 connected shapes. So you see the different shapes. There's actually a line connecting them. Sometimes the line's there. Sometimes the shapes are just overlapping the same icon. So this one is, students need to think about how the areas of study relates to other subjects within, between, and across disciplines. The key ideas are to connect, associate, integrate, linking ideas, and cross-curricular study. This is a very powerful icon as it helps students build brain connections to what they're learning in your class and connect those things to things they're learning in other classes. It also connects their learning to their own experiences and even to the real world. So thinking about popcorn. How does the study popcorn relate to other subjects within, between, and across? Sorry, I like the extra comma. And across disciplines. Okay, so that's a kind of a vague question, but think about this. How do the science and economics of popcorn interact? Is there a link between popcorn in the arts and popcorn in the history and technology? As you pause to take your notes, think about the powerful connections your students can make between your content and their world. And here we are, the last icon. It's multiple perspectives. It's represented by glasses. Sometimes you'll see glasses with a set of binoculars. Same icon, it means the same thing. It's addressed how you'll see others in the world differently and focuses on different roles and knowledge and opposing viewpoints. We have thought about popcorn a lot from the American lens. So here's your next question. How do others see popcorn differently? Well, how do other parts of the world view popcorn? I mean, is it a movie snack in all other nations? Do they have different flavors than what we have here? What about professionals? Is the opinion of popcorn different for a dietitian than for a farmer? How about someone in the entertainment industry? How do these viewpoints differ and why? Getting our students to think about how others see the world is a valuable life skill. Reflect and add any ideas, questions, comments to the document. All right, so now that you've had a quick overview, I want to add a few reminders. There will be overlap. Questions are good. And you don't have to use all the icons with any lesson, topic, or unit. Some may fit better with your topic than others, and that's okay. Some icons are natural pairs too. Trends, patterns, and changes over time, for example, just tend to go together. Ethics, rules, and multiple perspectives can result in deep and complex discussions. Some icons you may want to use every time, like language of the discipline and details. They're just natural starting points for all concepts. The amount of depth and complexity will vary for each student. What might be deep and complex for one student might be rather simple for another, and it's okay. You just want them to be moving to more depth from wherever they're starting and more complexity from wherever they are. The links for all the resources will be provided on the resource document. I keep saying this again. I want to remind you that I'm not going to just tell you and leave you with nothing to come back to. They are going to be on the resource document. The Envision Gifted website has so much information on using the icons as well as other components of the model. On their website, they have specific resources for applying the icons to math and language arts. Birdseed is another one that just has a lot of information on using these models and a lot of ideas. So right about now, you might be wondering how this will work in the real world, like in your real classroom. So I have some examples for my class. These pictures are notebooks, the notebooks students use to start deeper and more complex thinking about a subject they were familiar with. The subject was Gadsden High School, their own high school. And these students were in my seminar class, which was a mixed class of students ranging from gifted to SPED inclusion students. I even had one student with an intellectual disability. You can see that the students were able to use it. All the students could use at least some of the icons, and some of them used all the icons. So depth and complexity varied based on the students' abilities, but remember, that's okay. So these next pictures, they are when the students work together. So the first ones that you on this page, these was their own, just generating their own ideas. I wanted to give them the opportunity to just kind of think about the icons before they talk to others, because I wanted them to not be kind of influenced by what other people were thinking. But then I got them together because we know getting them together is actually the better way. And so this is what they got together to do. They were going to work in small groups to create a poster representation of the school using those icon concepts. This was more of an introductory activity, so I was really just introducing the icons to them. I think it's the second time they were kind of using them, and so this was part of their playing around with the icons. I'll go into how they evolved later in the presentation, but I also want to apologize. These posters were rolled up, and then I had to move classrooms mid-year, and when I rolled them to get our photos, they kind of were a little squashed. So sorry about that, but I hope you can kind of see some of their thinking and how they connected some of their thinking to those icons. Before we move on, we need to do one thing. Brain break. So here's what I need you to do. You've just acquired a lot of information in a very short time. So I need you to get up, get away from the computer. This brain break is called Find Something, Touch Something. And I'm going to give you directions, and all you need to do is follow them. So I hope you're up, away from your computer. Everybody up? All right. So I want you to go look around your room and touch something that's green. All right. Hope you had enough time to find something that's green. Now, your next instruction. Touch something that's soft. Okay, hope you got it. Next, touch something that's smooth. All right, one more. Touch something that's small. All right, you can come back to your computer now. That brain break was found on the Secondary Spanish Space blog, so I hope you kind of enjoyed just taking that just kind of visual break from all the information, letting your mind reset before we go to our next strategy. So our next strategy is problem-based learning. I'm sure some of you have heard this before. Some of you may have tried it before. So this is closely related to project-based learning and also service learning. So for the purpose of this overview, the acronym PBL is just going to be used to represent all three. Problem-based learning engages students in inquiry to define and solve problems and issues that relate to their own lives. Project-based learning is an authentic learning activity, but also results in authentic assessment of the content and skills that are developed over the course of the project. During PBL, students engage in cross-curricular connections and learning, including developing essential 21st century skills. And because of how students are engaged in extended and connected learning, the experience becomes more memorable. Dr. Kaplan's model can be used to both inspire PBL or as a strategy for students to gain the deeper and complex knowledge that is acquired during the project. And like Dr. Kaplan's model, PBL can be used by and benefits all students. So some additional benefits of PBL are listed on this graphic by the Buck Institute for Education. Project-based learning is anchored in the content, knowledge, and skills, enabling students to meet their learning goals in the 4Cs. So it's not just kind of like just doing a project on anything they want to do. It's going to be focused on your content standards and skills, connecting to the content standards and skills of other content areas, and also developing those four C's, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. The project always starts with a question or a problem that drives ongoing inquiry, research, and application. The project connects to the real world, making it authentic and its impact interesting to students. And then anchoring the process is the principle that learning should be student-driven. Student voice and student choice is a powerful motivator. Time should also be allocated for reflection, critique, and revision prior to the students making the work public. The Buck Institute for Education has exemplars, articles, rubrics, and many more materials that can be accessed to plan for PBL. Another resource that will be included in your materials is a chart from the Partnerships Make a Difference website. This handout breaks down the step-by-step process of PBL, including celebrating the learning at the end of the project. So, how do we implement this in the real world? You must start with a driving question or problem that the students are passionate about solving. In my case, the question originated from using Dr. Kaplan's depth and complexity icons. 100% of the students were interested in the unanswered question of the existence of a ghost in the oldest building on our campus, which is also a historical building. The interest led to a project proposal that included researching the history of the campus, eventually including related parts of the school district. The students work on various skills like photography, research, interviewing, and applying these skills to creating a historical documentary. The struggles of inadequate technology did plague the project, but the students persevered. The video you see was made by one of the students on her iPhone to document the work that was done during this project. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm going to let that one go. Sorry, that was for another project. Okay, so if you'd like to see that one, just let me know. I surely would share that with you. Um, so implementation, communication, and collaboration. How do we do this? I know it's a lot of information. You might be wondering where and how to start. So here's some tips. Don't go it alone. One of the best projects I had this past year was in collaboration with a science teacher for an Earth Day project. She focused on the content and the specific problem under the theme, and I focused on the format, written pieces, and photo essay components. Working together, the students ended up with twice the amount of time to work on the project they would have normally had. We ended up with half the workload. It takes some planning, but it's definitely possible. Number two, don't let this be the beginning and the end of your journey in using these two strategies. As I said before, this is an overview. It's just a taste of what's possible. Dr. Kaplan's model has several more components like content imperatives, universal themes, and thinking like a disciplinarian strategies. Project-based learning grows and evolves as you implement the components. The third one is consider an authentic audience. Our students perform better when they know that what they are doing really means something to someone. Having an authentic audience to see their work is very motivating. Included in this audience should be the parents. Parents don't often see or know the great stuff that's happening in our classrooms. Share that information with the parents, and while you're at it, share it with me. There are gifted students in your classrooms that I have a different role with as a case manager. Their work is important to me as well. Creating a newsletter or on paper or digitally gives you and the students the recognition you deserve. Even if it's a longer project, share the benchmarks and projects to keep the momentum going. And when I say share, that doesn't mean more work for you. Have the students write up an article or blog or create a podcast that can function both as a diary log and as the form of communication on the project. It also gives them tangible documentation they can use as they transition to post-secondary life. Oh, and make sure you take time to celebrate their accomplishments. So what's next? Before I end this presentation, I want to mention one last resource. It's this book called Teaching Gifted Kids in Today's Classroom, Strategies and Techniques Every Teacher Can Use. It's a good place to start learning how to meet the needs of gifted students in your classroom. It contains many ideas and strategies, and there are examples and templates and even a link to digital content. Super easy to read and very user-friendly. I have a copy of the text if you'd like to check it out before spending your money on your own copy. A reminder is that if you're interested in learning more about either one of these strategies, or if you want to consult on other issues related to the gifted students in your class, I am available. Let me know or indicate it on your survey. I'm curious about what you think of the virtual professional learning experience. Does this format appeal to you? I'm considering creating a closed Facebook group for our campus. Would you be interested in becoming part of a learning community on Facebook? The purpose would be to share information and success stories and even collaborate in problem solving the implementation issues. One last housekeeping item. Don't forget the survey. Please go to the survey link provided in your invitation. It will also be below this video when viewing from YouTube. The feedback is very important to improving this learning experience and my own reflection. The survey consists of 7 scale items and 4 open-ended questions. On the second page of the survey, you will find a link to all the resources mentioned in the presentation, including the depth and complexity booklet template. Again, thank you for your time. So here, if you want to try it this way, if you have, I don't know if you can click on this, probably not because it's you're watching in a video format, but if you have a QR reader on your phone or something, you could pull up the survey using this QR code. I'll try not to move around it too much so that you can get a good picture of that. Pause the video, get the QR code. Here's what this survey looks like so that you can see it in real life. This what's next, an overview of depth, complexity, and problem-based learning. Survey, you're just going to mark these items, whichever you feel is the best, what you feel about the presentation. Here's a question that kind of goes with up here, like if you are interested in more learning about more of these topics or other topics, you can put them here. Want to know if it's which information was the most valuable to you, how can I improve this and make it better, and any other comments you have. When you go to the second page of the survey, here's where it has access to all the presentation links. So you should be able to click on these things and pull up the PowerPoint presentation, the resources, the popcorn activity, and the booklet. The first 3 are all view only, so if you want to make a copy, and you can change your stuff, but at least it protects mine for future viewers. The bottom one, the bottom one here does that too. The popcorn activity is an open document, so as more people view this and write on it, more ideas will be generated, more questions may come up. You can always come back to it. It'll be through the PowerPoint presentation. You can save it that way, however you want to save it. And of course, then submit your survey. When you're done, don't forget to submit your survey. Again, thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope to be hearing from you. Thank you.